Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another father and daughter conversation. How you doing today, Dynasty?
I'm doing great, I'm doing great. I'm feeling good. How about yourself?
I'm doing pretty good. You see the energy is up a little bit today, huh?
Yeah, it's up. It's all right.
Okay, so... okay.
So today's topic is going to be about part 2. We were talking about broken homes. And we kind of want to talk about now how coming from broken homes impact us as we get older. As we become adolescents, to teenagers, to adults, how does this impact us? And what we mean by that is we all come from some form of broken home, rather it could be divorce, separation, one parent in a household, no parents in a household, being raised by grandparents, or having estranged relationships in a household. It can come from different perspectives, right? So when you think about yourself growing up in these broken homes, in whichever way you define it, how does this affect you as you're growing up into adulthood? How does this affect you emotionally? How does it affect the relationships that you currently have with your friends or your partners or significant others? How does it show up in your life, So I'll start off with myself. I think for me, one thing I noticed in my friendships is that I've been told that sometimes I can appear very withdrawn, nonchalant sometimes, that I can be a person that can cut people off easily, that I have difficulties trusting other people. This is a list. And that I have difficulties forgiving people. And so when I hear these things, that's because I've heard it multiple times. And I think that when I think about my past and my childhood, I know it was rooted in something. Of course, I'm going to have a lack of trust in my life because I didn't have my parents around. So when I grew up, I had to learn to become that protective shield for myself in terms of peer interactions, in terms of dating, in terms of navigating life. I had to figure it out, right? Of course, I might shut down or not be trusting to a lot of people because when you grow up in the hood, you learn a sense of survival, and you can't trust everybody that you know. You can't trust everybody that you see. You can't. Your trust is valuable, and like I stated in the previous video, that's something that was a learned behavior just growing up. Of course, I shut down. Sometimes I noticed the things in my childhood. I've been through so many situations where I felt abandoned or neglected, where people in my life that were important to me will walk out, or people in my life that were important to me abandoned me in a certain way, or made me feel some type of way. So it made my relationships with humans not that positive, because it was like, I got to do whatever I got to do to protect myself. It was a way I protected myself, but it was also a defense mechanism against the world. So in my relationships, sometimes I can self-sabotage my relationships with friends or self-sabotage my relationships with other people because I'm used to people walking out of my life. I'm used to people walking out and then leaving me with my emotions, and I have to figure it out. So in my way, I try to do anything that I can in my power to protect myself. And it can come across in my adult life as a negative connotation, or it can come off in a way as, oh, Dynasty makes me feel this way when she shuts down, or she makes me feel like our friendship wasn't nothing, or, Dynasty can easily just keep it going and don't say anything. But when you come from not having parents around like that, because that's like my dad and my mom was like my first love. And since I didn't have that secure attachment bond, it was easy for me to always not attach myself to people as much, right? So that's just an example of how certain things in my life, from not having that parental presence and that consistency in parental presence, mattered. And some people might say like, okay, my mom was around at a certain point, right? But my mom also went through a lot of trauma, so she didn't really know how to be that parent for me. She wasn't a nurturing mom. I don't remember my mom growing up talking about, oh my God, daughter, I love you, and giving me a lot of kisses. Like, I didn't come from that. So just notice how a lot of these things impact me as an adult. I'm not ashamed of it, and that's why I'm sharing it and trying to create space for it, because it is a real thing. The way that we treat people, the way that we see the world, the way that we see ourselves, the way that we interact with people have a lot to do with how we were raised.
Wow.
Yeah, go ahead. Check in.
That's pretty big.
Tap in, Dad. What's going on?
It's funny that we actually do carry some of the same traits.
Right.
Like even for me, I can see as a young man of going out to the streets where I'm leaving my broken home, and I'm going out there with a lack of trust, a lack of identity, feeling abandoned. I had to grow up too fast. It felt like that I really had to force myself, because once I left home, I was basically just out in the street. And so I had to learn every day of where I'm going to sleep at, how I'm going to survive, and things like that. And I noticed as a child that I had a problem with of not having much. You know, it came to the point where I remember not having school clothes, not getting nothing for Christmas, things like that. So once I went out there to the street and I saw ways of how people was getting paid, whether it was robbing, whether it was selling drugs, you know, I really wasn't a person that steal, but robbing is stealing. But I mean, like, just stealing something from somebody's house or something like that. That wasn't me. So I started to get a taste of just little things that made me exist, little by little. Like every little thing that I did that was wrong, you know, people react and they patted me on the back for that. And that became more of my identity. But what it did, it walked me into a street life where basically at times when I used to feel abandoned, I didn't know more. I didn't know more because I had people right there next to me was willing to go, just like I was willing to go. And then also the trust thing, like I really didn't trust people, but I noticed that as I got a little bit older into teenage life, where I was able to kind of like feel and understand like what I'm getting up for every day, I started to trust the next man next to me, because I knew at the end of the day that person had my back. And so as I picked up this behavior and picked up this belief system, that was hard to break, because here it is, you have a young teenager who develop a belief system, who develop an identity. And the identity came from the things that I started to believe in the streets that made me build a reputation. So no one wants that to get taken away from them. But what I realized is this, though. It was leading me down a road where it put me in jail, that belief system. And so down the line, I knew that that was the thing that was hard for me to break, is what I believe, and couldn't admit to myself that my bad choices is what was taking me down. I self-destruct. And a lot of times I probably did wanted to blame it on my mom and dad for not being there. But once I was there, I didn't have the time to play the blame game. It was all about survival. And I'm so grateful to this day that I can sit up here and talk about it and understand that all this stuff stems from my childhood, and how this stuff is affecting kids today, is affecting teenagers today, is affecting grown-ups from the ages of 30, 40, and still 50, that I still see it affect today, and hanging out on the streets and living like they still living in the 80s. So I think this is a massive topic that, you know, that can extend, and hopefully people that can gravitate to, and let's take ownership of it.
Yeah. Okay. So I think that was a great topic. I want you guys to make sure y'all tune in. We do this every Wednesday. So make sure you guys follow us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Make sure you like, share. We cannot do this work without you. If you don't like, engage, or share, we don't get to be seen on social media according to the algorithm. So I want to thank you guys for tapping in, and we will be in touch soon. Have a great one.
Thank you, everyone. Mental health in the hood.